everyone. Welcome to the Law Firm Reboot podcast. My name is Nick Werker. Now, during this podcast, we'll be featuring recordings of panels that took place live at Answering Legal's 2024 Law Firm Summer Reboot Camp. Before we dive into that recording, I wanted to briefly let you know a little bit about the camp's host, Answering Legal. For those not already familiar, Answering Legal is a 24/7 virtual receptionist service that exclusively works with the legal industry. Whenever lawyers can't get to the phone, our highly trained receptionist team is there to make sure they never miss the new client. Answering Legal now even integrates with your favorite legal softwares and provides a free mobile app. As a thank you for checking out our podcast, we're giving you a special free trial offer of Answering Legal, which includes an additional $300 off of services. To take advantage of this offer, visit answeringlegal.com, book a discovery call with our team, and just let us know you watched our Reboot podcast. Please note that this is a limited time offer. Now, without further ado, let's get to our panel. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Answering Legal's 2024 Law Firm Summer Reboot Camp. My name is Nick Werker. I'm the marketing director here at Answering Legal. For those who may not know, this camp provides law firm leaders with expert advice on how to reinvent their practice for the second half of 2024 and beyond. All this week, we'll be presenting live panels and live podcast recordings featuring advice from some of the best and brightest people from throughout the legal industry. That's you guys, best and brightest. Today's portion of camp will be focused on legal marketing related topics, and we're going to start things off with a discussion on how to elevate your firm's content creation. Joining me for this conversation is Andrew Nasrinpay, Conrad Saam, Gyi Tsakalakis, and Jim Grandone. Welcome, everyone. Before we get to the intros, I actually want to give a quick shout out to our friend Annette Chody of LawQuill. She wasn't able to participate in our camp this year. She was in a pretty bad accident.
No.
We just wanted to let everybody know that we just wanted to let Annette know we're thinking of her. We hope to see her back again here soon. She's totally good. She just wasn't feeling up to it. I spoke to her the other day. She's like one of the loves of my life. So we talk a little bit. But before we dive into the questions, let's get to know our panel a little bit. Panelists, will you tell us a little bit about yourself and the places or place that you work? And I'll start with you, Jim.
Sure. My name is Jim Grandone. I own Grandone Strategies. The company comes from a history of experience in professional public relations, including Edelman and Fleischman Hillard, two of the top PR firms in the world. More relevant is I've been providing writing and placing content for legal clients for more than 20 years. From advertising to op-eds and publicity placement, I've helped clients gain more clients and existing business from their clients. Those clients range from corporations, politicians, not-for-profits. And if you're looking for increased reach for your content, I would strongly suggest that you consider public relations. It makes it gives your content an effective in reaching your target audience, and it's very persuasive. What makes Grandone Strategies different from everybody else? We establish and maintain relations with our clients and with the media. We are not transactional. And I look forward to your questions today. Thank you.
Thanks, Jim. And you're a man after my own heart because I have two cats. One is very, 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 I'll call him rotund, is the word I'll use to talk about my man Mowgli. But Conrad, you're up. Can you introduce yourself a little bit?
Sure, I'm Conrad Saam. I've been working in digital legal since 2006 when I was the CMO at a then very, very tiny startup called Avo. I rolled out 12 years ago and started Mockingbird. We do full service digital. And I'm a co-host. Watch this awesome transition. I'm a co-host with Gyi Tsakalakis of the Lunch Hour Legal Marketing Podcast, of which he's wearing our amazing trucker ball cap.
Which I am going to be a soon proud owner of. And Karen says the word for portly cats is chonky. Yes, I do have a chonky cat named Mowgli. But Gyi, if you would introduce yourself while I can't stop laughing.
Sure, I'm Gyi Tsakalakis, founded Attorney Sync, lawyer turned digital marketer, because when I was practicing law, I was like, gosh, there's a lot of bad digital legal marketing. So I figured I could do better. Maybe I do, maybe I don't sometimes. But also founded another agency outside of legal. I do some legal technology investing and advising. Proud to be involved with Lawmatics and a few other logos in legal tech space. And as Conrad mentioned, I get Conrad fired up about legal marketing on Lunch Hour Legal Marketing Podcast. You can join us there.
That is my favorite part of your podcast, is when you get Conrad going.
It's like the whole point of the show.
It really is.
It will not happen during this taping.
Getting him to say an F-bomb is always the objective. So
Yes.
everybody, let's team up.
And last but not least, you, Andrew.
Hi, I'm Andrew. I run MeanPug Digital. I got my start in legal marketing working for Morgan & Morgan in-house as their director of paid advertising for 3 years. Then me and the director of engineering started our own agency. We now have about 20 employees, 20 to 25 at any given time. We're a full-service agency that does everything from like websites and digital all the way up to traditional media, so TV, radio, billboards. We're very, very big into brand building. All we do is work with lawyers, so this is kind of what we do every day.
What is the word for a portly pheasant? Because that's a beautiful bird on the wall behind you.
Oh yeah, you see this goose? Yeah,
That's a goose. I couldn't tell.
Good job.
Yeah,
good
right.
job, Gyi.
Well, we're on video here. What are you gonna do?
Right now, I'm avoiding the heat up in a cabin up in the Catskills. So
Very nice.
my Wi-Fi cuts out. It's because I am in the middle of nowhere.
Beautiful.
I love the cabin, and I'm going to jump into our first question here. And this one is after my own heart, and I can't wait to hear how fired up I can get everybody in this panel. Why should creating new content still remain a high priority for law firms in 2024? And don't get too fired up yet. Anybody, Jim, you feel free to jump in.
Well, how do you know what you know? You know what you know from reading, watching television, listening to the radio, reading books, reading the newspaper. Your content is key to getting into people's minds, being top of mind. And without content, then we're all sitting around in a cave around the fire. There's nothing to talk about. We need to have the information in order to make rational decisions in our lives.
Or we could sit around in a cabin with Andrew.
Well, yeah. Or come out to the West Coast here.
Fair enough. I think content is pretty core to like a lot of different advertising mediums. If you look at SEO, content is going to be vital there. I mean, you're not going to be able to get a page to rank unless you have very, very good content. If you look at advertising, your creative is going to be core to it. So I don't know if you want to include content as like the creative component on, let's say, TV, radio, or billboards. If you look at branding, the story you tell there, that's all content. So staying true to your brand and staying on reach there. And even you could reach and say stuff like the outreach you do for building referral relationships, the messaging you choose there is all content. So having people that understand the industry are able to produce good content is really, really core to almost all marketing or advertising.
I think
it's like almost like oh, go ahead, Conrad. Sorry.
No, I'm quiet.
It's almost like asking, like, why should communicating still remain a high priority in 2024? Like, if you don't know the answer to that, you better email Conrad.
I think the other, you said continue to create content. I think one of the things we should get into is that people have too much content, and that can be a problem. But the temporal nature with which people consume content at this point in time, we're frequently consuming content that was created very recently, and that is a change in the behavior of people that is facilitated frequently by social. So you're looking at stuff where there's a recency bias. 10 years ago, 15 years ago, a blog post could stick around for a very, very long time. And that would be a piece of content that could be more evergreen and get a ton of eyeballs on it. That has really evolved to a much more temporal approach to seeing new content on the regular. And people are expecting recency and shortness. And if you don't play that game and you're only playing the evergreen game, you're missing out on a big portion of how people consume content.
So besides blog posts and like the traditional types of content, what type of content should law firms be prioritizing these days? Should they be producing video? Does written content still have a purpose? Like where should lawyers focus their efforts as it pertains to content?
I would focus on their efforts on the type of content that the people that they want to consume it want to consume, right? I mean, we can go through each content format. We can say, oh, no one has attention spans and people want short form video content on social media. That's true for some people. That's not true for everybody. And I'll even make the counterpoint on the long form stuff. Like, the problem isn't that there's too much content. There's too much crappy content. That's the issue. I mean, I go back to Wait But Why. If you ever gone to the Wait But Why, I guess it's a blog, but relevant to our times. He talks about the AI revolution. That long form content, I still share it today over and over again. I think he wrote it in 2015. So I'm less about like how long should my content be or what medium should it be in or like video versus written word. Put stuff out in the world, be strategic about it, but think about it in the context of like, who are you trying to actually have a conversation with? Who do you want to consume it, and how and where do they consume the content? That's the most important thing, and then let that be your guide.
Yeah, one of the most important things is, where does new business come from for lawyers? It comes from other lawyers, mostly referrals. So what do other lawyers read? Well, they read legal publications. Well, duh. Let's be in the legal publication. Let's send out some information about things that are happening in our firm, what kind of services we're offering, new things that we're bringing online. We in public relations laughed when content became a big thing. We've been doing content for 50 years. And we send out content constantly. A lot of what you read in the newspaper is generated by press release. It isn't generated by entrepreneurial reporters going out and digging up stories. So content from that point of view is very important. Lawyers talk to lawyers. Lawyers give business to lawyers, unless you're in retail.
Yeah, and make sure that you're not, the content that you're writing for lawyers, you're not trying to just get in front of an audience that doesn't care about it, who's not, not lawyers, right? That's the other big mistake is, I think about the law firm newsletter, and it's like they write like they're writing to other lawyers about like legislative updates in their area, and like nobody cares. Now, maybe other lawyers care, but why are you trying to get people like, John Q. Public to subscribe to that? Like they're just going to report you as spam.
I had a television producer in the early days of promoting law firms. I was trying to get him on talk shows, on the Sunday morning talk shows, and I had his television producer say, "Jim, lawyers are boring. We don't use them on television because they're boring." Well, you go back to the Brown and Crouppen example, and there's some non-boring lawyers. And that's a wonderful program to watch, the Lunch with Lawyers on YouTube. Not be boring.
I agree with everything everyone said, but one thing that I would like to emphasize is that there are a lot of formats now. And the way I think about it is almost similar to like when you go to a grocery store and there's a self-checkout and a regular checkout. We just try to match it to what the potential client prefers. So I'll give an example there. If you go on like New York Times or Wall Street Journal website, and you go on an article, they have the written content, but they also have like audio transcriptions now where you can click to listen to it. So if you're driving or something along those lines. And this is something that we do on a lot of our client sites now, where we transcribe the audio, the content to have an audio portion as well. And we do this in the attorney's voice. So you could get the attorney to read, I don't know, like a 2-minute sample. And if they're a branded attorney that's on TV, radio, or billboard, it's another extension of brand. And it is a unique form of content on the site. And now there are a lot of people that also prefer video content. So having your practice area pages include video content is going to be helpful, not only with ranking, but just the way people prefer to consume content. There's going to be a lot of people that prefer other formats than reading a giant wall of text that may have worked better, a decade ago on Google, but things are changing a little bit.
That's absolutely true. People have a attention spans of a gnat now. If you can't say it in 10 seconds, you can't say it.
So we're talking about the types of contents, but how can law firms determine what topics they should be addressing in their content, and how can they figure out what their potential clients want to hear about? Say for like the ignorant lawyer who just wants to start creating content, how can they figure out what their potential clients actually want to hear about?
I think part of this is going to come down to where you're looking to publish the content. If it's for search, it could be something like search volume reports, or the people also ask areas in Google, or even just the Google autocomplete when you start typing in phrases that are tangential to what the lawyer wants to rank for. But another thing could just be competitive reporting. So we've built out a tool that anytime one of our clients' competitors publish a new page on their site, be it a blog post or a new practice area page, if it's an area that might have to do with like class actions or something along those lines, where you're not always going to be the smartest attorney to think of every new case, you could see what's out there. And if you have an effective marketing team, you may be able to get clients faster than they can. So I think part of it comes down to where you're looking to publish the content, what case type your firm is going after, and pretty much that.
Yeah, and my thing that I would add is like, what's the intent of the content? Because if you're trying to capture someone that's got high intent on a specific search, Andrew's mentioned SEO, right? Well, that's going to be much different than if you're creating content for brand building, right? Like Brown and Crouppen doing people eating sandwiches. And so for lawyers that are like, this is their first foray into this, they're not comfortable with it, not good at it. Nancy mentioned in the comments, I would start with focusing on stuff that you actually care about yourself, because one, you're actually probably going to have something quasi-interesting, hopefully, to say about it because you actually care, versus trying to come up with something to do like some kind of newsjack thing or something else. Think about the things in your own life that you like care about. Maybe you're passionate about cycling or whatever. I'll let Conrad talk about affinity, but the things in your personal life that you actually want to create a video about or write about or join a podcast about, your personal brand, quote unquote, is going to come through better with that stuff than if you tried to create something for the specific purpose of top of funnel awareness marketing, which you're probably not going to do a great job of out of the gates.
Yeah, so I think where Gyi's going, I take this a step further. It's, what are you interested in? We talk a lot about branding and the importance of being more than a lawyer and who the person is behind it. And if you can build brand affinity, and that is the concept of not just I know who you are, but I like who you are. And the difference between brand awareness and brand affinity is I know what Pepsi is, but I've never ever bought one in my life, nor will I, right? And so I'm trying to build brand affinity for a law firm. And if you can flip this script in people's heads, this is a guy who's a lawyer. This is a woman who's a lawyer who I like. Everyone hates lawyers, right? Everyone hates lawyers, but these guys I like. And why? It doesn't matter why, but it's the ability to build affinity there. And I think one of the things that is so valuable in content creation at this point in time, and actually I'll use an example. I saw Ken Levinson yesterday. Gyi, he was very disappointed that you didn't join us in Chicago. But I saw Ken Levinson yesterday. He has spent a whole bunch of time developing content around food in Chicago, right? Now, he happens to be a lawyer who likes food in Chicago. People who are into food in Chicago know who this guy is, and they like him as a person because he's promoting small restaurants, locally owned restaurants in the Chicago area, and they like him. They don't even know what he does, but they know he's a lawyer, and they have affinity for him. And now he's flipped the script for everyone. Like, yeah, they're lawyers. And then there's this guy who really is into the thing that I care about, which is food in Chicago. You flip that in people's minds and you win. And I'll use Andrew as an example. Like Morgan & Morgan can't come in and compete with that, right? They can be something different, but it's really, really difficult for a Morgan & Morgan to come in and compete with that. It's really, really difficult for a Billboard to come in and compete with that. And so building that, and it's so easy when you're a local market, but building affinity for who you are through content it's unbelievable. It takes time, it's effort, it's overtime, but it is so easy to do with the right content.
It might be able to, but it'll take millions of dollars, right?
That's right.
It's going to be TV,
Right.
radio,
That's right.
billboards,
very
full
easy
blitz into the
He's
market.
going to have to fly into Chicago and have dinner 5 times
right.
a week at the local
That's right.
restaurants.
Gyi was talking about knowing your target. You really need to know what people you're trying to reach use to get information. And where am I going with this? I think research is something that is available online, cheap, free, in many cases, as to your demographic that you're trying to reach. What do they use to get their information? Where do they go? And then they use that information to target your media and your platforms.
So we've really talked about creating interesting content. We've talked about some content that you've seen law firms create, and talking about affinity. But can you share some other examples of really creative or interesting content that's really worked for law firms in recent years, so that our listeners can kind of get an idea of how to play to their own strengths in creating their own content, like how Conrad's talking about this brand affinity with the guy who rates food in Chicago. I mean, I could probably rate all the restaurants on Long Island, because my wife and I get home after a long day and we never, ever, ever want to cook. And so we're just constantly testing out new restaurants. So maybe this is something I should do. But what are some other examples of like really creative stuff that you've seen people play into their strengths and create some like cool affinity with?
I'll give a couple. This maybe not, I'll give everybody else a chance to think more about the affinity. This is kind of in between. This is the intersection of expertise and also creativity. And I'm going to say this, and these guys are going to be like, they're going to roll their eyes because it's been abused, but it still works pretty well. Say you do motor vehicle accidents. You do a dangerous intersection map. So you highlight all the dangerous intersections in your local area. And guess what? It gets picked up by the local news. And they're like, local lawyer reviews local dangerous intersections. You pull, state highway traffic statistics and put that together in an interesting way on a site. Another firm that I've seen, they rate worst insurance companies based on their, the data they have in their own firm data. So they'll say, we know X, Y, and Z about these insurance companies. And guess what? It's easy to pile on insurance companies. Everybody loves that story. So people download the 10 worst insurance companies in the state PDF. And then you can do an email drip behind that. But I think where you can find the overlap, I'm all about the affinity thing too. I think where you find like the real, the overlap between communicating your expertise and stuff that people would actually want to consume, that's where some real interesting things happen. Because, look, it's great. And I'm a huge supporter of be known for stuff you're interested in. I think it's also important, though, like when people are making these decisions, it's either, a lot of times consumers are shopping around. You don't want to just be known for the thing that people like. You also want to be known for, it's this thing that they like, and this is the expert firm on this particular subject.
Yeah, I think to build on that, there are some attorneys that do a lot of books where they do books that are both, attorney facing to win the referrals from the firms that don't practice the practice areas that they do. And then they also do consumer facing books where a lot of people oftentimes think they can, negotiate with insurance companies themselves in these scenarios. And if you write a book showing them where it'll get difficult and all the steps in it, oftentimes they're going to come back to you when they realize that they're getting a lowball offer. So I think books is an interesting one. I also think podcasts and webinars and all those sort of things work pretty well for case types where there's a long duration. So it might be something like immigration or estate planning. All of those things, there's just a large amount of content that is generally consumed by the individual prior to retaining an attorney. So I think it all comes down to what litigation area the firm is practicing.
Yeah,
and I'll flip this completely. I'll move completely out of legal content. Do stuff that people like. Do puppies on the internet. go sponsor the local Humane Society puppy giveaway and make sure that you get that carried by both social media and local press, and do that every single week. Everyone, if you don't like puppies, you're an awful person, right? So like, do that. People love these things. I'll use another example that's kind of out there. Some people are doing a great job, and I think this is tasteless, and this makes Gyi blanch. I know, because we've talked about it, but go look at awful content like the Texas Law Hawk. Super, super tacky, awful representation of the legal market that hits really well for the right market. I'm never going to hire the Texas Law Hawk. Ever. I don't want to meet him. I don't want to speak. Like, he's not someone, but there is a market that he appeals to. And I'm not just using him as an example, but some of the super tacky market. We've talked about, know your audience and find your audience where they are. Some of your market's tacky as hell. And that's fine. Be that and lean into it, and don't try and boil the ocean and be the right lawyer for everyone, but be that lawyer that does outrageous garbage. There's an audience for that, and that is a great way to build affinity for something that doesn't work for me, but that's not the point here.
Totally agree, Conrad. I actually think it's funny. One of the podcasts that we were shooting, we had our pug in it, and it just started like snoring and like cut during the whole thing. And that actually ended up being one of our like best shorts that we put out there. Because you have these attorneys talking about serious things, and then you have this pug like snoring with no interest in it whatsoever. And
our best
we used
short
it. It was
ever
awesome
for Gyi and I was when my puppy peed on me while we were doing the LHLM podcast. Right? Like,
yep.
Community events are also something you could use to reach all levels of consumers. Festivals and things like that, being the main sponsor or even a second sponsor, gives you a lot of exposure in the community. And a lot of law firms that I worked with had branches in a lot of different cities, and they can do it in each city and create a lot of community goodwill.
So we've been talking about this a little bit, and we're talking about attention spans becoming shorter. So how do we combat that? How do law firms today that are creating content, how do they make it shorter and more to the point if they hope to connect with their audience, especially as we want more digestible content? But also, is that the wrong approach? Is that not the right approach for everybody?
Yeah, I go back to the same thing on this. Like, look, you want to get engagement in a social feed from people flying by on Facebook and Instagram, you better keep it short. You better put the captions right in the video, because people are watching it with the sound off. You know, some of the platforms, there's limitations on how long the videos can be, and there's different studies on the the reach of various lengths of video content. So in that context, short, great. I would do short video social content, no doubt about it. However, big however, to the point that we've all been talking about, not everybody is consuming content like that all of the time, right? And so I'm going to use Bill Marler as a great example, food safety lawyer in Seattle. I think he won an Emmy on Netflix for his feature thing on foodborne illnesses. So he's got a captive audience, people watching a full-length documentary on Netflix. That's not short social content. So my response is, don't put all your eggs in one basket. The expert people like us come on and we say, people have no attention spans and do everything in short form video content. And it's like, okay, then everybody rushes over and does that. And then there's all this open ocean over here to actually do something to actually gain subscribers or get people in their inbox. I'm not saying you need to make a Netflix special, but I'd mix it up. I think trying various lengths of that, and don't assume that in every context, everybody wants to consume from you just 3-second video clips on their favorite social platform.
It may seem obvious, but you need to have a point of view, and the point of view has to be the consumer. It can't be I, Mr. Attorney, am going to do this for you. It's you need this, and this is why.
One thing I'll bring up with the short form content is a lot of it can be cut from the longer form content. So to keep costs lower for firms, a lot of times what we'll do So we'll have a 2 or 3 day shoot where we plan out a year's worth of videos, whether it's your firm overview video, your practice area videos, FAQ videos, and even firm process videos. So as people hit different stages within their like intake and case management, they get videos letting them know what's going to happen next. So they don't need to call into their case management staff to wonder what's going on with their case. I think all of that, a lot of the short form can be cut from the longer form content, but you have to have everything planned with your scripting, your storyboarding, your camera angles, all that ahead of time, because the different platforms where you're posting things, different things work better. Like if you're on YouTube, you probably want to be zoomed in more on faces. You probably want short form content, but that may not be what you want for a longer form practice area overview or your firm overview. So I think a lot of it comes down to planning with video content. You have to plan well because it's expensive to do good video production. So the better you plan, the more you're going to get.
I want to ask, and I asked this yesterday as it pertained to an SEO conversation, but how much should law firms be relying on AI to help them generate content?
Wow.
I think so. I think the key word, the reason you're getting everyone pausing here is you use the word rely. I think rely is the wrong word.
Okay, so how much should law firms
use?
Absolutely lean into it. Absolutely do not rely on it. There is, and that's why everyone gave the because you barf out a bunch of AI stuff like that can be problematic, but you cannot deny the ability of AI to generate content more effectively, to generate ideas more effectively, and to build out what you're doing. But I think I always think about AI content like a middle schooler, right? You want it to be able to function on its own, but you always have to check it before it goes out the door.
And I would come back to the same thing. Everybody's going to be annoyed because I'm going to keep talking about this context. But, look, you want to do, as Andrew mentioned, you want to do like an in-depth practice overview of, civil litigation or personal injury litigation. You want to pull stats and you need a lot of in-depth research. I think AI could be helpful to getting some ideas, and you have the AI. It's also how you're using it. Like, not just be like write a post on personal injury, but like what are some, and AI is getting pretty clever. It can crawl the web, and so maybe you feed it some source material and say, hey, what are the areas I need to cover that is missing from my pages? Stuff like that, I think is really, really effective. But here's what AI can't do. All the things that we just talked about. AI can't tell your stories. AI doesn't know anything about your personal affinity for stuff, doesn't know what you're about. And so the issue with AI, the issue with the automations we see in the context of email and every other automation you can think about at your law firm is that we feel this pressure to make things more efficient. And so we're like, oh, this is amazing. We don't have to spend any time on it. And that's the wrong way to think about this. It is a great assistive tool. A lot of the things Conrad mentioned, ideation, you need an outline, stuff like that. I think it's great. But we get in our heads that, oh, now I don't have, I get emails that are literally like, oh, so you're out of business because you don't need to actually create content anymore. And I'm like, yeah, please hook up the ChatGPT API to your WordPress site and start churning out ChatGPT content on your website. I really want you to do that because I'm going to get a follow-up email from you. And the point is that, yeah, it has its place, but this is not a cure-all. And in fact, the stuff that works the best, it's the stuff that actually comes from you, or, maybe it's, you need some nudging, or it gives you a prompt or something to help you get past writer's block or video content block. But ultimately, people want to interact with people. And in fact, here's the other thing that's a liability people don't realize. All these really smart people who are super efficient about, posting on LinkedIn, copying and pasting their ChatGPT prompts into LinkedIn. It's obvious. People know what you're doing. And guess what happens? They don't want to engage with it anymore. So there are people that I know that I'm friendly with. And I'm like, send them a message and be like, hey, this is obviously by ChatGPT. Are you wondering why nobody's commenting on it? It's because everybody knows it's over emoji ChatGPT hashtags.
I got this yesterday I was speaking at a conference, and one of the vendors at the conference was an AI vendor. And the email that I got from him said something along the lines of, hey, there's a really interesting session on marketing metrics that you should pay attention to. I'm wondering if you're going to be at that session. Would love to talk to you afterwards. I was literally giving the talk in that session, right? And it was, you have just completely proven that this does not work right now. It was so funny.
AI has no humanity. I used ChatGPT as a ruse to write a column. I write various columns for various publications, and I wrote an entire column on gun control using ChatGPT. And I read what it wrote, and it was cold. It was just cold. There was no humanity in it whatsoever. I thought to myself, nobody's going to read this. This is like reading a dictionary. So I had to go in and I had to re-edit it, and I had to add humanity to it. And it was a pretty good column at the end.
Yeah, not to mention it'll get statements of law wrong all the time and things like that are going to get lawyers in trouble. So I think the biggest use cases we've seen for AI is pretty much, for us, it's been the text-to-speech transcription, because it just saves the lawyer the time of them having to actually read the script, right? Things like that, I think it has a use for. But, I mean, for us, we have a lot of writers on staff for a reason. It's because the content comes out better that way. And we don't see like a ChatGPT or any of these tools really replacing the writers anytime soon, if ever.
So I'm curious, for the guys who run agencies here, do you have any pushback from your clients that's like, oh, I pay all this money for all these writers to write this content, but you could just do it with ChatGPT and you should lower my price? Do you get any pushback like that?
No, we actually see more people enter the sales funnel saying, like, the agency I'm using clearly used ChatGPT to write this content. It's total garbage. I can't even use this site. Than the opposite.
Got it.
We get both. We certainly have both prospects and clients who, people want to know about it. How are you using it? Can I do this myself? And that's my thing. I'm like, look, we sell expertise just like lawyers do. And I'm like, if we can't demonstrate to you that what we're doing is more effective than what you could do just from a ChatGPT prompt, well, we're probably not that expertise-y about it. And so, and I think Andrew made the point about the hallucinations, and there's a bunch of other things too that I would tell lawyers. There's a whole question of like, what's permissible use. The ABA just came out with their whole Gen AI guidance thing, which wasn't very helpful in my opinion. But like, do you have to disclose that you used it? Do you have to write it? Do you have to put in your footer, like, we use ChatGPT to help us write this post? And it's not exactly clear in some states whether or not you would have to do that under the Rule 7 guidelines on misleading content, because like technically, like, did you, if you just copy and paste, you didn't write it. And if you publish it under your name, you've got those kind of ethical issues. So again, for me, I mean, look, that's why, and I understand. I'm sympathetic to people. They think they've got this magic bullet that allows them to churn out content at scale without much work, but the quality's not there. And I'm very much like, I'm a Ray Kurzweil guy. Like, I think the information singularity is coming and yada, yada, yada. We're not there yet. Just play around with some of these tools right now and you'll see that it's not quite there yet. Could it be there in the next 5, 10, 15, 25 years? I don't know. I mean, I'm not an AI scientist, but it's only going to get to that point when we truly can't tell the difference, right? Like if it's me sitting here and this is an AI generated avatar of me talking and doing my ranting and getting you guys fired up and all of my little nuances, and the AI can pull that off, then it won't matter because it's passing Turing's test. We won't even be talking about it because you don't even know. You don't even know it's not me, but it's not there. And once people can tell, it's more of a liability than it's a benefit, in my opinion.
I will say we deliberately lean into it. Like, I look at this as a tool. We are so, as a metaphor, we're doing a website redesign, which is long overdue. We are deliberately using visual content that is AI generated, and we're doing that deliberately because we want to be leaning into something that is changing and it is evolving. The reality is we can generate stuff more effectively and efficiently, and we need to continue to lean into this because I don't want to say we're at the start of this, but like it's the difference between bleeding and cutting edge, right? And we need to be playing on the cutting edge of this without stepping over into bleeding. Yeah, it's not always perfect, but this is a component of how we will continue to generate content from a marketing perspective over the foreseeable future.
Okay, I have a prognostication question. Is that a word, prognostication?
Mhm.
Hell
Yep.
yeah.
It's a year.
If you had to project, what will the world of law firm content marketing look like a few years from now? Is there anything law firms can do right now from a content creation standpoint to help them better prepare for the future?
So I'll tell you what I'll tell you two sides to this answers to this question. The first is to focus on what I've been talking to Charlie Mann about this. Do what the bots cannot. Keep producing content that's focused on the stuff that cannot easily be copy and pasted from ChatGPT, that cannot easily be sourced. Tell your stories, make it personal, do the affinity stuff. That's the content I'd be focused on. That's my constructive response. My a little bit cynical response is I am in the camp that it's going to get harder and harder and harder for us to tell the difference. I think that these tools are going to get so good. The deep fakes are going to become a problem. I don't see what there doesn't seem to be consensus on the solution. Some people have been talking about watermarking and stuff, but once this technology gets in the hands of every kid that has a smartphone and can deep fake, and you can't tell what's real and what's not, I think we got a lot of problems. But that's a conversation for another day.
Yeah, I've got mixed feelings on the whole thing because as an agency, we are very much not leaning into using AI to generate content. We still spend a lot of money on video production and getting unique content, doing unique photography, writing all the content. We do use AI to do the transcriptions like we were talking about before and a little bit on the planning side. But when it's almost a winner take all market on the highly competitive search terms, we think that 5,000 words of content produced by a human is probably going to be better, especially when they've been doing it for like a decade, and it's augmented with video and checklists and all sorts of things to make that page more beefy. But at the same time, you see the tech companies move in the opposite direction, where the top performing ads now on Google are probably going to be LSAs, where there's almost no differentiation in content from one firm to another. And then you look at the informational queries being answered by Google directly, taking it direct from clients. So a lot of this is showing almost that they're moving in the direction that the content doesn't matter, where they're showing you shorter form answers as if there's almost no decisions around it, where there's like one official answer given by Google. And same thing with Facebook, where a lot of things are moving towards the native forms and the native things, which puts less of an emphasis on your website and creating unique content. And I think part of that is they just want to make it easier for SMB. But I see things going towards short form, but still currently like top ranking pages need a lot of content that is like man-made.
I think we need to focus on authenticity. We need to keep our stories human. And the more human they are and the more relatable they are, the more receptive people are going to be to them. We started out telling stories around the campfire as cave people, and we're still telling stories. We have storyboards for videos. AI can't do that yet, but people can tell the difference when it's got humanity or is not authentic. or when it is authentic. And I follow politics. I've run 13 campaigns, and deep fakes are a big concern. They're very much a big concern because they can have a very realistic person telling lies about themselves or about their record or about what they're going to do, and you won't know the difference. And then you go into the next news cycle, which is denial, 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 and you lose.
I think we all got fired up enough, and this is a good place to stop. So if our campers want to continue following your work and connect with your company further, where do you recommend they go? And I'll start with you, Jim Grandone.
LinkedIn, James Grandone.
Love it. Short and sweet. Gyi?
Lunch Hour Legal Marketing.
Yay!
I can't wait to wear my hat on like the next time that I go
Same.
Do we all get a hat?
Sure.
live. Last but not least, Andrew, where should we go?
meanpug.com, or just email us at bark@meanpug.com.
bark@meanpug.com. I love that. All right, everyone. That is all the time we have for this discussion. I'd like to thank Andrew Nasrinpay, Conrad Saam, Gyi Tsakalakis, and Jim Grandone for joining me today.